All right. All board members are here. It's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So, possible action, board action to approve the August 11th, 2021 agenda. Is there any public comment about the agenda? No public comment. Can I get a motion to approve the August 11th, 2021 agenda? So moved. There's no motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mark second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. For possible action, board action to approve the minutes of the July 14th regular monthly meeting. Is there any public comment about the minutes from last month's meeting? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the July 14th, 2021 regular monthly meeting? David made the motion. I get a second.
Second.
Mark seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0. Introduction of guests. All the members of the public here. Don't have the attorney or the engineer here. Board members present. All board members are present. Staff present. We've got present. Okay, so we're on to public comment. This public comment is not for board action. This portion of the meeting is open to the public to speak on any topic within the authority of the board that is not on tonight's agenda. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker, and speakers will be asked to sign in and state their name for the record. Is there any public comment about anything that's not on the agenda?
Yeah, Steve Mitchell, I have a public comment. 2 of them actually. One, actually related. The first in regard to previous interest in brush clearance, looking over the county recommendations. And one thing, I mean, it's probably too much to tell people, okay, we want you to clear your entire frontage. But it may be advisable, it may be possible to tell people, look, we'd like it if you could clear a 10-foot clearance around your propane tank. Okay, that is something the county recommends, and the county will enforce it through code. Enforces them to, but that might be something to start to ease people into the idea of brush clearance, because based on our experience with recent fires, that's a pretty good piece of advice for everyone. Clear brush around your gas tank. My second point has to do with clearance of brush as well. My understanding is that Northern Nevada Energy is responsible for clearing the brush around the poles and lines they've installed. I wondered if we've ever inquired with NNB about whether they have any interest in doing that in TRE. For a lot of people, that would also clear their frontage roads as well.
Okay, so
That's it.
I was forced into learning something about this. Obviously, as there was a fire coming over the top of the hill. And first and foremost, I want to say props to Trevor and his guys. Okay, they didn't leave, they stayed here, they made sure the wells were on, they made sure the boost was wrong for you guys. Anybody was here, kept water about 99% of the time. And that's impressive, and I appreciate the fact that they did that. Second, I went to NV Energy during that fire. They were out here, the lineman was out here. I asked him the question. I asked that question, are you guys responsible for under the power line? NV Energy has instituted a new fire break group that actually each district has somebody assigned to. The guy that was out there that day was the lineman for the area, had inspected all the lines and told U.S. Forest Service that everything was safe. He said, I'll turn the power back on. If the fire changes directions, I'll turn the power back off. US Forest Service said if people are still here, they were told to evacuate. If they're still here, it's not my problem. And that's basically all they would tell me other than to get out of the space. So like I said, I did research into the NV Energy side of it. I don't know if they're fully responsible for like clearing sagebrush directly under their lines. I'm not sure on that yet, but it is a good direction to research because they may be, and they may be instituting new regulations to do that because of, obviously, I believe the Paradise Fire and now the most recent fire, I believe they were both started by PG&E, the Dixie Fire. So
The
I know
Walker fire was started by Liberty Energy. That's what I heard.
the one out here in Walker.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Down power lines.
So, I mean, with all that, I know the energy is making moves in that direction, and great point to bring up, and we'll continue research and see if we can get there. Any additional public comment? It's not on the agenda. Right,
So I want to bring up that issue, but it's all been water and reaching this point out in the all the way washed down in the Delta, so it's already been resolved. But there was a little bit of a kerfuffle early on about road report and some things that were written down in the manuals as far as I didn't understand. I've looked at some of the manuals, I talked to some of the people about it, this, that, and the other thing. It seems like a lot of the manuals that we run by either are way out of date or don't exist and could use some updating. I don't think anybody on this board has any time to do that. And so just off the top of your head, does anybody think about it? Because I'm going to keep looking and seeing if I can't get somebody jumping up to volunteer to help you guys update them and then submit the updates to you or whoever or approval.
I know Trevor's been working on it as he can, obviously.
He's way over. I mean,
Yeah,
Trevor,
yeah.
way overtaxed.
Yes.
Would you welcome help?
Stretch pretty thin.
Yeah, would you welcome
I
help?
thumbed through it.
Think about it, because I'm gonna talk to you guys later, and if I don't get anybody that's really hard on against it, we will look at doing something like that with somebody who's enough to volunteer. And one of the other things that I was thinking in the same vein is stuff like this that comes up. Whose job is it to clean the culverts under our driveway?
Under your
Stuff-
driveway, to do it.
Stuff that comes up all the time, all the time, but people out here get pissed off about it because whatever.
I
If
know
we had-
people are generally more worried about the roads than they are the water, which is
If we have
because their water's
volunteers,
not off.
if we had a volunteer to just basically summarize what he just talked about, and then update it when we get an answer on whose job, who's responsible for this and why, and who's responsible for this and why. Because that thing the last meeting was like, I mean, the answer to that was we'd all like to do it the way you want to do it. But the tax structure in the law and state of Nevada doesn't allow it. Now, you can figure a way around that, we'll all vote for it. We haven't been able to figure a way around it yet. And if we had that available online, one page, people wouldn't be any happier, but at least they could get a little background before they get in there and fire a shot across the bow.
So I've been speaking to a lot of people in the past couple of weeks. I all of a sudden got inundated with stuff. But Trevor and I were on a phone call with Cheryl Couch, and I asked that question. I tried to use a different way to get there, but I said, will the USDA help pay for storm drainage? Can we get a grant to pay for a contractor to come out and clear our storm drain? She said, she did not say it was impossible. She didn't say it was easy. But she said, one of the problems with the new whatever $1 trillion bill they're passing in Washington, D.C. is the USDA is receiving very little funds out of that. The money goes straight to the state. So we'll have to either go to the state revolving fund, or if we can maybe work with NDOT on some of these things and stuff like that when they get some of these grants and see if they'll help us out. Again, just because you don't see it all the time, we are doing this. We are working on this stuff. And I know Trevor's working on it. The stuff that we're gonna talk about tonight, Trevor pulled all that off. And it is coming together. Things are coming.
And I'm totally in favor of all of that, but just to clarify, what I'm talking about is the see if there's any volunteers interested in dotting the i's and crossing the t's and updating.
It's for the paperwork,
It's just ridiculous. When we took it from the, I looked at the paperwork at our church. They called for more standing committees to be in our church, according to the corporate bylaws, than we have members by about 30%. So that's what I'm talking about. Things that jump out at you like that need to be corrected. I'm not going somebody who's speaking up the wrong day doing it. Think about it, if anybody's got a problem with that, and we'll talk about it at the next meeting.
Anything else? Any further public comment? Not on the agenda. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. Correspondence, possible action, bills to be paid for July 2021. Road bill, $147,202.82. Water bill, sorry. Water bill, $147,202.82. Road bill, $12,847.54. Burke camp, $2,122.00. Can I get a motion to approve the bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills to be paid for July 2021.
Mark made the motion. Can I get a second? Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. 5. All right, honor reports. Treasurer report has been submitted. Anything additional, Mark?
Nothing additional.
And Trevor, water operators report.
Back T samples came back negative last month. We did also do disinfection byproduct samples for the distribution system. We have continued the clean grass pile, breaking down the old meters. During the fire last month, NV1 was activated, which is like a statewide system of utilities that come together during an emergency to aid like situations like ours where the fire would come through and burn through the community. That we have generators and things to keep the system up and operating so we don't lose pressure in the water system. I did do a after action report with Nevada Rural Water and NV1.
And just speak on that, who's the guy that was out here? Mike?
That was Mike Bonnie.
Mike Barney?
Yeah. He's,
So that's something just for the general public to know that he was with Nevada Rural Water. Right?
Yeah, he was out here. He's one of the circuit riders that they have out working for him right now.
Are they still understaffed in your understanding?
Yeah, and for them and the rest of.
They're understaffed, everybody's understaffed, but they still make sure to have somebody out there for us. So that's a good.
Yeah, as soon as they heard the fire was coming towards our area, they were on the phone pretty consistently with me. Aside from that, everything went well. We did end up getting Braves Electric to come out here during the emergency to make sure we were getting our generators and stuff tied in where they're supposed to be. And aside from that, I have been on the phone with resource development. It's park construction. I believe they're out of Sparks to start mobilizing equipment out to tank 3 to get that tank sandblasted and recoated. So that's supposed to start next week. They were supposed to mobilize out this week, but they want to finish up the job that they're at right now. So they'll be out here next week. Aside from that, we have to replace an operating nut on one of the fire hydrants.
Question, generator.
No, yeah, the generator is planned to go to that electrical system. They're out of Sparks. We're gonna haul that thing in. The CPU burn up after it was running for about 5 hours.
And it was something that the owner or the manufacturer said we should replace long ago.
Right, it was one of the defects with that generator that after a certain amount of hours that they use burns up the CPU in there. So we have no way to start it because there's no display. It's all electronic to start that thing. So we're gonna have it sent back to where we bought it from. And they're gonna do a heat start and then get power back to the display and move the CPU from the block to a box somewhere. I don't know where that would be at.
that is creating thousands of degrees.
Yeah, not on block of motor. It's the hottest. And that's hopefully gonna happen here Friday.
What if they turn the power off next week and when it's dispersed, what's the backup? Do we have while it's going?
I will tell you that people were volunteering generators. They just couldn't get here because of the fire. So in my opinion, after watching that and talking to the people, if there's a will, there's a way. And at this point, there's no fire blocking the road. And if there was a fire blocking the road, people were willing to bring them back way. We do have water.
Was it your understanding that the generators were being volunteered looking at it?
If that situation was to happen, an NV warrant situation would be reactivated. We would have different generators being offered up or donated for that amount of time. So that would reactivate the NV warrant for us in that situation. I don't anticipate it being very long for them to do it.
So when you say being offered, were they being offered through the NV1 system or were they being offered by Bob's County?
So the NV warrant is different utilities and districts that are around us. Like one of the generators that we had brought up here was from Hawthorne Utilities.
Okay, but it would have come from an entity somewhere else inside the system somewhere.
Right.
So would likely be probably.
We only had one thing that was a snafu, and we got a three-phase generator that had to run a single phase.
Yeah, that one that they brought up.
I'm just hoping that Bob doesn't show up with this Honda and like that and with this big.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were talking.
That'd be fiercely.
Yeah, that goes.
That is smoke.
All right, so that the end of the
That
water report.
will go for my water report.
All right, on the road.
The road report, we have a couple little sections on Topaz Ranch that are remaining for patching. And we are planning to start working from sandstone, from granite up that way here as soon as we wrap up these last few spots on Topaz. The ditch maintenance, I've had a difficult time trying to get to, especially since with my foot being broke the last couple of weeks. I can't run clutch in that in that motor grader, and I haven't been able to train anybody yet to get on that thing. So the ditch maintenance, as far as brush removal, will be backhoe work, and I want to start looking into getting the main flood channel that runs through the middle of the community looked at. I've talked to a few different people. A long stick excavator with like an 80-foot reach. I've talked to a few people that have those. That would be something that we would need to start looking at. It's pretty bad below granite down to the highway. It's pretty filled in and silted in. That easement's 50 foot from the back of the community all the way down to the highway. I think we need to start looking at trying to get that easement back. I don't believe we've had that thing dug out since it was put in. I know I've put some extensions on some of those boulders, and dug out some material at the beginnings at the fronts of them. But aside from that, we haven't done too much maintenance on that flood channel.
That ditch on the side of my house there, you know what I'm talking about, is that part of that? Because that ditch runs all the way up through my property and up toward the backside of the road.
I don't think it is. I think that's just another drainage that they had to put in because it's so far, it's so much further from where the actual flood channel is. And the lay of the land right there is more uphill from that point. So it kind of runs naturally down through that.
Well, right in front of on the side of my house is a pretty good sized culvert and it runs across Sapphire there.
Right.
And then it goes on toward the highway.
Yeah, there's another
I
one.
just
on
wondered
the
about
side.
that other ditch, if that would be the property owners, because I keep a mind. But I could probably get in there with my tractor on the other side and help clean that out if
Well, I mean,
I get permission from the property.
I mean, we really should be the ones trying to maintain it anyway.
What I'm getting at, I didn't know if it was like our responsibility. You know, the idea, that part of that.
Yeah, where those natural drainages run, where it runs through properties,
Yeah.
people's properties, I mean, they're supposed to kind of keep them maintained, and ultimately, I think it was back when Dave Lynch was still here with Long. Must have been 8 years ago or so, when we had the big flood, and somewhere I've been told that those drainages are supposed to stay in place, and that if they were to be covered up, then the parcel owner would be responsible for any flooding that may happen from that downstream from them. Okay. I haven't seen anything in black and
I
white
can't
that said
find that. I've
but,
looked for it.
but, we
But,
had,
yeah,
we had, I think, Dino was out here after one of those, and those natural drainages are just one of those things that need to stay in place only because if they're not there, they kind of fans out and floods everybody else.
If you modify it, you're responsible for it.
Right, right. You fill them in, and you're responsible for any damage created down.
So if you fill them in, but if throughout time silt flows down there and fills it, you didn't do that to the property. So who's responsible to keep it clean? That's something we've all been asking for a
Right,
while.
and that's where I've never seen it in black or white.
Yeah.
Natural drain, where they drain naturally through the forest.
I would get his permission from the property owner to do something.
Then we take a lot of liability in the fact that we're gonna drive on their property with piece of equipment, to break anything, to fall for it. So all that's gotta be taken into account. And obviously, well, if this is really something that is not in writing, if we can't find it, then we're gonna have to put it in writing, we're gonna have to vote on it, we're gonna. That's fine.
Put them on here, no?
I can ask him.
But I'm sure that there's something on lesson with.
I have a feeling what he's gonna say to me is I'll take some time and I'll research. That would be my guess, so.
It's written somewhere. I have no idea where.
Neither do I. Okay, additional?
No, that's, I had my generator on the equipment repaired, so that was supposed to be on the.
Okay, so we're on to attorney's report, he's not here. Engineer's report, he's not here. So we're gonna move on to the administrative calendar and on to the agenda. Item number 1 on the agenda, please, discussion only. So because it's discussion only, you guys can ask questions, there's not a time for board to speak or public to speak, so please don't interrupt. You guys understand. For discussion on the current status of the USDA RD grant application for funding a new well. And some materials are available, this paper right here. You guys got that out from the table over there. You want to go over this or do you want me to? Tag team it?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I want to say I got surprised by this all of a sudden one day with an email. And Trevor's been working with Cody very hard. They've gone to Cheryl and what's the other guy's name?
Cheryl and Pierre.
Cheryl and Pierre. I want to try to say it last. And all of a sudden they sent this to me and they're like, here you go. Generally, this is the last step, but they were moving quickly because they were trying to get rid of funds for year end. So let's have
We had to lock in the funding before a certain date, or they wouldn't be able to divvy it out. So
Use it or lose it.
Yes,
basically,
it was use it or lose it money.
yeah, so.
And we got blessed with, we got lose it or use it, you want it. So Trevor, what's fun.
Uh, So we got a $2,696,000 grant funds for the new well and the new transmission line from the well to tie in we're gonna tie in over this well here, and we're gonna disconnect well 6 from the system entirely, I believe, and put a 90 in. So the parks parcel out there where we're planning on drilling the well, which we'll talk more about in the next item. $277,000 of the funds is a loaned amount, which is usually a fraction of whatever granted free money we get. We will end up paying some of that back at a interested rate, and I believe the
40
interest rate
years,
was, it's a 40-year loan.
40 years at 1.35%.
Right. So,
So it's a very, very friendly loan to us. And they did say that one of the reasons they were able to get that rate down to 1.357, I believe, something like that. The reason they were able to get that is the USDA takes the average household income, the median income for the area. Yeah. If you look at TRE, that does put us down in the low category, which pushed our interest rate down real low. They crunched all the numbers. We have to save a little more money on, what's it called?
the short-lived assets and the reserves for that. So we were putting $24,000 a year into a reserve account for our set aside payments for these loans that our debt that we have with USDA. That amount was able to get dropped to $8,400 a year. So we're saving some funds that way. Trying to find which page it was on.
We have to increase the short-lived assets from the 8,500 that is currently at 12,500.
Right.
But we saved 16,000 of the 24,000. So in a sense, we saved 12,000 a year that we have to set aside.
Yeah, and that's all explained on page 5 in the short-lived asset reserve. The interest rate is the 1.375%.
1.375.
And we are getting that 2.9 or 696 million for this beginning phase of the project, which we're hoping to start at the end of this year, if not probably January.
Okay, you just roll with some numbers. So the 2.7 that we've got right now is for the well project. The 6 is for phase 2.
The 2,696,000.
Okay, yeah, you said 6 million.
Yeah, the 2.696 million
Okay,
is for that first phase, which will be the well and transmission line. And there's some meter reading equipment and upgrades. There's few delineated little small things that are going to be in line with that. The second phase will be more mainline replacement and fire hydrants in the remaining areas of the community that still don't have fire hydrants on their street, which are all mainly old 4-inch main lines that need to be upgraded anyway. They're obsolete, I guess you'd say, but it's nicely. They're falling apart, they're really cracking and breaking, and especially with all that earthquake activity we've had lately, I've seen more leak repairs that we've had to go out and do. So this project is going to do a lot as far as getting the redundant source and the system upgrades that we need for getting the remaining areas in the community that don't have fire hydrants.
the phase 2 has not been funded in any way. There's nothing set aside for us on phase 2 yet. So it's been applied for, but there has been no funding for that. That may not come about for a while. We're not sure on that one. Phase 1, the money is set aside for us at this point. So is there any questions from the public about any of that part of it?
So I've talked to Lonnie about this before, I just want to get on the record that part of that January 21 preliminary engineering report from Sean mentioned, they'll take care of it. just so everybody's aware of it, that the current permitting for the well across the road, whatever we're calling that, on 106, primary and only well we have. The permitting is currently 500 feet off from the actual well location, which I personally couldn't care less about. But it says in their report that this is outside the permissible distance of 300 feet for water rights. It's a big deal in some other country, of Carson City, maybe someday. But the answer, according to them, is that when we do the new well, and we're applying for, anyway for all this water permitting stuff, we just go ahead and take that care of this detail. Apparently, they're going to take care of that. But put that on a little red letter sheet on the board, so whoever's checklisting their stuff 3 years from now,
Has Cody said anything about that?
make sure that that's
That was
in there.
more the easement alignment for the replacement line when they took off from that well with the 10-inch going out, they were off on their stakes, on their layout. So that was where they were off on that easement allotment.
Yeah, well, it's in their report, so the assumption is they would catch it.
Yeah.
3 years from now, whatever.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Put that in the back of your.
They're gonna knock that right.
I'll try to remember that.
Yeah, I have a related question. Technically, across the 208, isn't that have a different zip code and isn't that Gardnerville? Where does the edge of Gardnerville end? Because I know Holbrook Heights, that's
It's
Gardnerville.
over.
Topaz Lake, that's Gardnerville. Is it Gardnerville over there? And
No,
is it gonna matter? Because technically, our well is not located in the town, it's getting grant.
it's technically, Gardnerville ends at Holbrook Bluffs Court right there on 208. Yeah,
So that's the, it has a,
Yeah.
that right there has the same zip code we do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what matters.
yeah, because Oil Run is still Wellington. Right, if you look up Holbrook Bluff Court, it's Gardnerville.
That's the address of Gardnerville.
Yeah. Wasn't in charge of
Nobody can
that.
explain why.
Yeah, it's just.
Hold the rest.
Very on, it's fine. That problem of where the line is out at well one, that was resolved, I thought, that about 2 years ago,
I thought that there
when
was.
we were gonna put that back in. They discovered the error. But I'm wondering if you're rediscovering it, it's been fixed.
I thought that that had been fixed before. I thought it was
Yes,
dealt with.
absolutely, because we had to rewrite the contract.
So, fix, do you mean that, do you think the line's been moved or the paper?
Oh, I know, but the line hasn't really been moved.
Yeah.
It's still in what we thought was the right easement. But when they did the survey, they found that it was off.
Usually,
So
the paperwork, do you think?
we had to rewrite the contract with the right location. Well, it's with parks.
Oh, parking.
So it must,
Yeah,
it
I have-
this never got transferred to the permit.
Well, that's gonna be really strange.
Yeah, that's right. I was.
That's why I'm bringing it up now.
Yeah,
2 years ago.
yeah, that was.
We don't want to be seeing this 2 years from now.
An easement with park does not get transferred to the state engineer's office.
Not necessarily.
Probably not. Probably not.
It would give us a reference point though for what we should be looking at when we finally see the correction.
And it should be on the drawings.
Yeah. Yeah,
All set up, all those, I have all the line, that should have all the right coordinates and everything.
I never really looked into it much after the line was in and.
If it's not the right location, that's a good surprise to me.
Right, and it shouldn't have made it past the, final inspection.
Right.
That was one of the punch list items.
There's something wrong somewhere.
It could be something where it's just not transmitted to the right people. Which could be, I assume that it would have been an issue during final inspection for sign off on that.
Well, it was a big deal. Huh?
Can you look into it and take in that charge, the old engineer out there?
Yeah. we'll do
I
that.
haven't passed the final limitations on that. but I think- Because I tried that already. I told you that.
I'll look into it some more and see what exactly is.
Even
Because that should be.
that should eliminate, to ask if the
Shaw should have all the information that we must have at the time when they were doing all their work out here. From what I was told, they transmitted all the information they had to Shaw.
Because it was limits to discovery.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Looking good to see. Hopefully it was just oversight and transferring paperwork.
Well, that's what I'm wondering if it never got recorded by whoever the last person piece of paper did that.
All right.
Any board comment on agenda item number one? Additional board comment? Public comment and more, we're going agenda item number one. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number two. Again, for discussion only. TRE GID new well site easement and negotiations between legal teams for the district and Park Livestock. So I spoke to Mike Rowe, our attorney, and he has already spoke to the park attorney. And they're gonna work on something that they're gonna present us. I'm not sure what it is yet. I know that Park is going to want something out of the deal. Come on, he's businessman, he's not just gonna give it to us and be like, there. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if Cody, do you have, or Trevor, do you have any information that Cody shared with you?
Yeah, we had some talks about valuing the land value at 50% on that easement width from the planned site to the highway where we're going to end up having bore under the old well here. We didn't really talk any prices or anything like that. We just kind of wanted to get an idea of where he was at on allowing us to get an easement for that. He said that he doesn't have a problem getting us a straight shot from whatever area that well gets put on, and he doesn't have an issue with placement. He said we can dig a straight route right to where we want to go. That's easier for us. He said it doesn't bother him at all. So ultimately, whatever his attorney and the district attorney end up drawing up to present to you guys to sign off for as an agreement, and we may end up having to tie over a couple of services and do some bids there for, and decide to put some parcels out there, develop a few lots out there.
So something for you guys to understand, if he does come at us with a will serve or something like that, it will not be us putting in the infrastructure. It will be him putting in the infrastructure. The only part of the will serve would say that from the well that we drill, they would go bring their infrastructure to it and we would supply water. But we wouldn't be on the hook for infrastructure. So we're not getting into something where it's going to cost us much money down the road. I don't know why. I don't think he's going to be tomorrow want to go home, right? We've all talked about this. But he, especially when there's a year like this year, there's actually a heat shortage into that. So I don't know what the negotiations are going to come out to be. It'll be presented to us. We'll bring it in here, present it to the board, and obviously you guys. And we'll see where they go with it. But it is important to get done. We have to get it done. You can't finalize this without that. Because the money really can't be, it's reserved for us, but it can't be said it's for this project unless we have to see it. So,
Yeah, we have to get the easement allotted and signed off, approved before they'll even give you out any money at all.
Well, how long do you think that's gonna take?
well, there's two attorneys talking.
Yeah.
The lawyers have it.
Depends on how long the attorneys talk for.
I know that Mike and I have talked, and he understands the need. He understands the need. He understood the need for all of this. Every single thing that was brought to us that was done on this, Mike Rowe's team signed off on, gave approval for. He's been great at moving quickly for us. Now let's hope he continues to move quickly for that. That's all.
this, it's more like when you get at the end, as opposed to how long it takes. Takes
Yeah.
another 2 weeks, and we get the really want, much better.
Agreed. Question? Steve Mitchell.
Last meeting, President stated that Park had 0 water rights to that well. Now you're saying it sounds like it's a will serve, but he suddenly does have rights to that well. Is that correct? Which is right? Either he has 0 or he has some.
Okay,
Can he ask for some and get them?
let's word this correctly. He will never get any of our water rights. Ever. The water rights will always stay with TRE GID. If we supply water to those homes, they will be on a meter and be billed exactly the same way all the homes are here.
So those houses would be in TR or those units, whatever they.
They'd be on the same basis.
Yeah, they'd be on the
Be
district.
part of TRE.
Yes, but they would still be paying the water bills. He would not receive any of our water rights. So it's not like we just gave something away. We won't be giving anything away.
Yeah, the water rights that are tied to the wells and the will serve for what we sell the water to, or if we ever do, are two completely different topics. The water that we pump out of the ground, our water rights are tied to a well. So his water rights are tied to his ag wells. And whatever number of acre feet to water rights he has, he would have to drill us another well on his own to get.
And
To
he
tie
gives us
more
a
water
well
rights.
served. And, you know, they
If-
can't
if-
refuse that.
A will serve would be something like if he wanted us to serve him water. And we
You just be
signed
selling
an
him back the
agreement
water.
with him that we'd be pumping water that we pump from our water rights that we allocate for that new well. Then the water we're pumping, we'd be selling, we'd hook up a service and a meter. And then
Right, I
he would,
understand, I
he
understand.
would
You're
run that.
You're
and
gonna
be-
charge him for it. Is there any limit to how much will serve? you could
Yes,
take?
that's being negotiated.
That's
by
part of it. I mean,
the
you could decide to put in meat processing.
No,
I mean,
we're
they're
not
saying
gonna-
we need all the water.
Absolutely. No, we're not gonna agree to a neighborhood.
Yeah.
We said that there's gotta be a common sense limit on it when you're making these decisions, when they're having these discussions. So, yeah.
He might decide that the
I mean,
50%
there's
of
no
the
limit on how much water I can use, right?
He
If I
made
wanted
the-
to use 100,000 gallons, I'm entitled to that.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I pay for it, right?
He has the money.
If I have the money, he's got the money.
He might decide to take the 50% of the land value as a number and say that I want that much money worth of water services put in. And he have, I don't know, 10 or 15 services put in, and he puts 15 lots up there, and we supply 15 more houses with water. So, I don't know how, I'm not saying that's how it would be, but it could be something like
This
that.
is all, so possible.
Right, it all depends on what the legal people come back with in the end.
And to tell you the truth, I don't think David Park is actually, he has attorney panel.
Right. Initially, when I talked to him, reviewing all this, he was talking about, he wanted the option to be able to put 4 or 5 homes somewhere out there. And wanted us to supply water to those, but they would be metered each home. And that revenue would come to the CID.
It'd be fine if we had the water.
Which hopefully with the secondary well, I mean, this is 2021, we're putting in a new well in 2021. Let's hope that the hydrogeologist did his job properly. Let's hope the Shaw has done their job properly, and we're gonna have an amazing well. That's what we're going for.
Do we have a location in mind for this one yet, or are they still working?
Very
Yeah, did you grab one of these maps?
Yeah, I did.
But that's gonna be an approximate area of where that 80 by 80 foot well easement is, that W, that's gonna be an approximate area where the well will be drilled.
And you see it's a pretty straight line at well 6, so it's relatively easy to make that tie in over there.
Is that area flagged or marked? Because I went out there the other day myself, I couldn't find it.
No, they haven't had any surveying.
Oh,
They're walking around with the GPS.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna make a date with you so we can go film you exactly
yeah, it's
when you're up to it.
right. Yeah, we go.
In 5 weeks.
Last year I was out here running for the mail, down there by the Arctic, house. There was a crew drilling the well, they were down about 20 feet at water. Has anybody?
Over here on
On the other side-
Bosler.
on the other side of the road,
um,
down by, well, by the mailbox, in that area, sort of.
we wanted to kind of stay, we have 3 locations.
I'm not saying go down there, I'm just saying,
Right.
if anybody talked to them about what they actually wound up with when it all got said and done.
We actually had 3 original proposed locations. One was south of the well one. The area B was basically right here where that well is at now, or where the proposed well is at. Another one was over there by Kyle Drive. The problem with that is that once we start drilling over there, anybody within 2,500 feet of where we're drilling, we have to send letters out to you saying that we're going to drill a commercial well here within your aquifer, and it would ultimately just create
That'd be a really fun meeting.
and it would
Well,
be,
I'm not saying move it down there, I'm just saying, because it looked like they had all the water in the world. If they go down another 20 feet, they don't have nothing. I just wondered if anybody talking around the water code and figured out that well really came in fell or not, or even know that.
we talked about it, and then we were, it's basically a sort of a public nightmare, really, we'd be creating, because we'd have everybody over there whining that we're stealing their water and affecting their domestic well, but in a municipal well for the whole community.
Plus, we'd have to run the main line
And really
for a
far.
long way.
Yeah, and it was really
And
far.
that would,
It would cost us a lot of money.
yeah, a lot of money.
We had the same problem with well six. And it was state required to check all the civilian wells around it for drawdown. So that's one of the reasons why it's really nice to have it across the road.
Just to clarify, I wasn't saying move it.
Yeah, right, yeah, no, we did
I just
look
wondered if
into,
that one was where they should have queen sitting time.
we did look into it.
About having well over on this side. It really behooves us to have over there. Especially since you've got all these wells, that are all back there, all the way
Oh, yeah,
down.
Any other board comment, public comment about agenda item number 2? Nothing, nobody? All right, we'll move on to number 3. So this is actually to approve with modifications or conditions or denied, an amendment to the current standing rule 22, appendix D. Notice concerning lead. The section requiring amendment reads, the EPA currently has set a maximum standard for lead at 0.5 parts per million, but the standard may in the future be set even lower. Item B, the 0.50 parts per million number may have been a clerical error some time ago, but it is throughout all policy copies that have been reviewed. Item C, the provision should include the 1991 revisions of the EPA lead and copper rule to include the reduced maximum contaminant level, MCL, set at 0.015 parts per million, with the MCL goal of 0. The amendment will read in 1991, the EPA set a maximum contaminant level for lead at 0.015 parts per million with an MCL goal of 0. So this is a housekeeping issue on obviously something Fred brought up tonight and Trevor found in the books. And it is what it is. It said 0.5, which is a huge amount of lead. It should be 0.015
That's a lot higher,
or less.
a lot higher than.
So is there any public comment on this item?
Yeah, what was our last meeting on the test for lead?
So the lead samples we take from 10, there's 10 properties out here, and they usually want us to to pick the oldest properties or dwellings that are out here. Usually because they usually have the fittings that contain lead or use lead solder for fitting the copper fittings or any of that together. So we take a sample bottle and we give it to the homeowner, and they leave their water off all night so that water sits in that line. And the first water they use, they fill that bottle with, and then shut it off, and then they give it to us and we send it to the lab, and then they give us whatever their results were. Some of them come back 0, and some of them come back with a minute amount of lead. I'd have to look to see what the last batch was. I think we only do it every 3
They all
years.
been less than point.
I don't think we've had any more than, nowhere near the 0.0 or the 0.5 that it was saying before, but
Lucky for us.
yeah, but it's mainly a home, like a personal
Make
parcel
sure they don't
issue.
flush the toilet. Are you standing there?
I honestly don't know personally, but I mean, I've taken them for them before, and they've asked me, I don't know what you want me to do, and they go in there and it's like, you just have to fill this up, from the tap and fill it up. They sometimes forget to do it. Sometimes they remember to do it, and they leave it sitting outside for us and pick up. It's just one of those weird tests that we have to do for the state to stay in compliance. They're the ones that ask us, well, where are the oldest homes in the community? And it's like, well, there's a few of them around here, but a lot of them have been getting replaced. So most of those old homes are harder to find. And it just depends, I think there was a couple of them that had to change the last time they had to do it, only because the house was either taken off the property, completely removed and never replaced, or burnt down. I know one of them burnt down some time ago, and I didn't see any alarming lead or copper samples come back that were too high.
We've always been in
There was a couple that had readings, and we report those results back to the homeowner when we get them back from the lab. We give them these quick reference guides when they come back with a lead reading in their samples. Aside from that, we can't make them replace their plumbing. It's probably a good idea to. Lead over time is not a very treasured thing to be consuming. But it's just one of those compliance things that the EPA likes us to do. We have to do it. That's one of the reasons I've seen this, and I was like, that has to change. That's not right. I knew it wasn't right when I read it. There's no way.
So we're wanting to change it to the 0.015 basically,
Right, and
and
that's
get
what,
it correct.
right, and that's what made me think it was a typo, is because the 0.015 has been the MCL
Since
for-
91,
from
they
90
say here.
yeah, since 1991.
Okay.
And we didn't even become a water company until like 99, 2000. So it was already in the rules that we don't exceed that contaminant level, and it's in the policy of 0.5.
So it's a misprint.
I'm assuming that it is, only because that's like 4 or 5 times the amount it should
I
be.
think that original amount was 0.5 prior to 91, and they just carried it over.
Yeah, that very well could be true.
This seems like a lot.
About the time they took lead out of gas. 36, I think it was. Yeah.
I'm surprised it wasn't hot when they lowered the standard on our.
Yeah,
I thought when that would have been food bread, they would have caught. So it's,
yeah.
this is an easy one, man. I mean, for us here,
Yeah, it's just changing.
we're just changing it.
Purely
So-
administrative,
Right.
right?
What?
Purely administrative. There's no impact.
Right. Yep, just divvying up the paper file.
Right.
Any other public comment, board comment, any comment? So can I get a motion to approve changing the wording from 0.50 parts per million to 0.015 parts per million in standing rule 22, appendix D, notice concerning lead.
So move.
We've made a motion,
I second.
Mark seconds, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0. On to item number 4, for discussion only. Find out when Sandstone Drive is going to be fixed. Many potholes. And this was a real walk-in request from a Don Humans. So I know Trevor already mentioned the word sandstone.
Yeah, we're actually got a couple of bad spots on Topaz Range that we're gonna hit. And there's a couple of little, just a few more sections left, and then we're gonna be transitioning over to sandstone. I'm hoping before the end of the month. I'm waiting for my other guy to get back. He's supposed to be back tomorrow from Utah, so he hasn't really had the manpower to do proper in the last, he's only been gone since Friday, but.
So, okay, we all know the road, we all know, and we are working on it. Dave reached out to a couple of people that maybe will
Yes.
help us get some money.
Yesterday, I had lunch or breakfast with two people. They're advisors. They're actually lobbyists in Carson City. And we're talking about the infrastructure funding that's coming after the Senate passed it yesterday for $1.5 trillion. Supposedly, the state of Nevada is going to get between 5.7 and 6.3 billion dollars. That will be delivered to the state. And they're looking at, right now, they're going to divide that up among the different counties.
If they do it like they did the last one, they go by population of the county, correct?
I don't know how they do it.
Probably. That does help 49,000 people, Douglas County.
No, but we also said we should get in an application as soon as possible. Okay, when we talked about that, well, the thing is, we will get the grease, or we will get the worm. We need to get in on that. Okay, we can't discuss this. We need to get on our agenda. I'd like to have the board have a special meeting, talk about this as soon as possible, so we can get an application in. I also talked to a couple of people well, right now there's 23 GIDs in Douglas County. My meeting yesterday or the day before yesterday, 23 in Douglas County.
We're gonna what?
They're the little ones.
Don't we have more than any other county?
Yes, we do. We also have the biggest one, which is the Gardner Room, Rancho. Okay, at my meeting, there were two trustees from the Ranchos there. And we were talking about it along with Mark Gardner after our breakfast. And he suggested, or I don't know who suggested, but somebody said, we ought to get together all these GIDs and apply for the money. What we could do is hire a grant writer and have that grant writer get paid based on final grants. So they get paid when they get it to the grant and as a portion of it. That could be included in the grant money. Okay. I have a meeting again next week with one of the trustees from the Rancho GID, and they were all in favor of it. So we'll see what comes of that.
One thing.
But
that
we
is
have to bring
concerned
that up at the agendized meeting. We can't talk about it now.
No, we can't make decisions now, but one of the things I get concerned about a lot of times, when we talk about going with somebody like the Ranchers, right? The largest GID
In the state of Nevada.
Again, this is like Douglas County going into a meeting with Clark County.
And then, let's keep it in our church pocket for now.
So will we get enough to help us, or will the Ranchers take all the money? That's my.
No, well, we'll work that out.
If they know better lobbyists, let's go in with them. If we know better lobbyists, let's leave them in the parking lot.
Okay, one of the things we talked about, what project we want. Okay, just my personal thinking, I said, okay, we have money coming in right now for the wells. Let's not dirty that up. Let's say, okay, we need money for something else. We need money for a maintenance building. We need money for road repair. Okay, part of the project for the, water line replacement is in granite from all bike to 208. Okay, right now, most of that road has road base under it because it was a state highway. Let's take and say, okay, when we repair the road, let's put 4 inches of asphalt on it. Don't Mickey Mouse it again by putting a coat Band-Aid over it. Let's fix it right. If we can get in another big road, let's get the money for that. Tear the road up, put in 6 inches of road base, and put in 4 inches of asphalt, and we won't have to worry about it for a long time. We can do that when we write up our grant application. And I think that would help us way down the road. Hey, if we, 2 years from now or 1 year from now, if there's additional funds available, let's go after it and fix another road.
I mean, here's my opinion, okay? Again, just an opinion. But when we're talking about all this type of stuff, if we fix one road, we're gonna hear from 700 other people who didn't get their road.
Too bad. Hey, you can't,
I
you
want
want to fix one road at a time.
Sorry,
But what you're asking for now is the consideration for a closed meeting to discuss this further. Just with the board
A
present.
special meeting to discuss it.
No.
No, we will agendize it, as soon as possible. Okay, with advertising, can't be by before the end of next week, I don't think, or the week after.
No, there's gonna have to be written,
Yeah,
this kind of process.
but we should do it. Get this as soon as possible.
The roads in the Rancho taken care of by the county.
No.
There's at least one GID in Douglas County that sold their road back to the county. And now
Don't
the
even
county
wanna go
takes
there.
care
They're
of
gonna
it.
take
The
it.
taxes would go up.
The county is not gonna take any of our roads.
Sell them back to them.
No, they
Your taxes, your taxes. would go
I
up.
haven't researched it. I don't know if somebody can tell me if this is true or not, but I'm being told that on the county register, our road is still listed as gravel. They're not even listed as being anything other than gravel, not part of
Yes.
Hey, that's the same as what we have.
it. No, I don't,
No asphalt there.
not arguing the point at all.
They don't do any road reports on their side.
Anyway, I would ask the board to set a special meeting as soon as possible, so we can energize it properly, so we can take care of this. The guy I talked to yesterday said he will set up a meeting with me, with the state treasurer. And we can get him to come down to TRE and look at our roads. That will have a big impact on him pushing for that.
I want pictures. You get the state treasurer to come down to the area and look at the road. I want a picture for proof.
No problem. Hey, I'll take a picture.
Because I don't think he's gonna go.
Hey, why not? He's only coming from Carson.
Yeah, I know.
He can send somebody from the staff,
There you go. Yes.
but I would like to get our meeting agendized for a special meeting to discuss this.
Any other public comment, board comment about agenda item number 4? Which is find out when it's hands on.
I would call it the sandstone, some of it, okay, if we took. Huh? I mean, yeah, but we had that thought. I would think that there's areas on sandstone, like going over the one hill, where, hey, we should tear up the whole section, put base down, put 4 inches of asphalt down, only if it's 400 feet long. There's areas that are always a problem.
I wanted to take that hillside back for
Yep.
a long time.
Yeah.
I've had that hillside USA twice and never had to.
But if we do it properly with the possible funds from the state, we can take care of some sections.
Oh, I got it. The 1.5, 1.7, I don't know, whatever trillion, 500 trillion that they're passing is gonna be on our taxpayer tax. We know that. So we might as well try to get whatever we can out of it.
Amen.
So I'm in a full agreement with anybody that talks to anybody that can get a hold of that money. Let's get as much as we can.
Yep. I would like to proceed along those lines.
Fully agree.
Also with the grant writer. Hey,
And
They get paid from
we
grant.
did vote to put some money for grant writers, did we not? We did, so we could have.
that was a monitor.
I know, but it could be some upfront money to get them going.
Yeah.
We had to get some money up front to get them going.
Yeah.
We could do that, so,
Provided they don't get paid for the grant.
absolutely. Okay, any other comments about Don Yeoman's?
I don't know where he lives, but
I don't know either.
Question, has the board ever considered writing down, I mean, every meeting, for how many, I don't know how many years now, somebody comes in and complains about the roads, and then you guys all go through the same explanation. Have you ever thought about writing it down so that when people complain, you can just give them a letter and say, here you go.
You can't like.
The problem is that we can't stop public comments. You can't stop public comment, they can come in. every-
Right, right.
Well, but your answer could, I mean, you have those things.
You can have it
Bring
right
a printer in here and print one out, and
So there you
come
go.
back the next week.
Save a lot of time.
They'll all do it.
I try to make it a point.
It's the same answer.
No,
The
I-
bitching about our roads will never stop,
I'm not saying stop
because
the
soon as we fix a hole on one road, man, there's a million other roads that
You fix one and two more pop up.
But Dave's idea, if we can get into the money, we can actually repair some roads properly,
Yeah.
then those roads will stay repaired for a long time.
If we had road base under all these roads, it would be less of a, I don't think there would be as much.
There would be.
Base there is, but
no. We can use our money on road
Chip
base.
seal on dirt.
yeah, right, on rock and clay and whatever.
I got more road base on my driveway than we do in all of TRE. And I got a lot of road base on my driveway, but they ain't none around here.
I don't.
All right, so we're on to item number 11, public comment. This is not for board action. This portion of the meeting is open to the public to speak on any topic within the authority of the board that is not on tonight's agenda. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker, and speakers will be asked to sign in and state their names. The board will not take action.
I have a new topic question. I noticed over the years on my water bill, especially since the new meters came in, that it's always exact numbers, right? So 1 month I'll use 500 gallons, the next month it will be 600 gallons. In summer will come and I'll use 3,000 gallons. How come? I mean, how come it comes out?
Are you seeing 100 gallons?
Hundreds.
Are you seeing 100 gallons on your bill?
How much? Sorry?
100 gallons?
No, the smallest one I ever got, I think, was like 300 gallons. And the biggest one I ever
Yeah,
got
We
is,
should, we're not supposed to be giving out bills for it. You only get billed for every 1,000 gallons that you use. So you pay a 45.50 base rate and then a 275 on top of it.
I'm not talking about the money, I'm talking about the
The actual
actual amount
numbers.
of water
But-
listed.
Well, that's what I was wondering, is because if you're receiving a bill for hundreds of gallons of water, you shouldn't be, because you should only be
I
getting
do,
a
I get a
bill for,
bill for 300, 400, 500 gallons.
it's either for 1,000 or 0.
No,
or-
that's not how,
or 2,000.
not on my bill, I'll bring you my bills next time.
Yeah,
That's not how it works.
I want to see, because.
Maybe if it's under 1,000 gallons, they just throw some number on there that's under 1,000 gallons.
Because if you're,
There's a minimum charge.
is it, it's
Right, there's a
45.50.
flat
Right,
rate, I understand.
yeah.
And then you get paid by
Are you
the
paying,
thousand.
are you paying?
Yeah, I never have to pay, it's always the same amount under 1,000 gallons, I think. whether
So it's the
3, 4, 5,
45.50.
When it gets up to 3,000 and 4,000 gallons during the summer, then I start paying more, a
Right.
little bit more, but not. I just want to know, if we have these high-tech meters, how come they can't, are you telling me it measures plus minus 100 gallons?
We measured all the way down to the 100th of a gallon on those
But it's
meters,
not on the bill. It's
but
not-
that doesn't show that. No.
Somebody else asked me about that in
Yeah.
the community, and I said, you know, you're right, I don't know why, I've never thought about it, but yeah, my bill is always around that.
When we do our reads, we only read the 1,000-gallon numbers on those meters. So the first 4 digits are the millions, 100,000, 10,000, 1,000.
Right.
And then the rest is pretty much irrelevant, except for us to know whether you have a leak or exactly how much water you've actually used. The 1,000-gallon number takes over. The way our meter one works, it reads those first 4 numbers. And it sends those 4 numbers to our computer in our handheld. And then we send that back to the office and she gets this printout of all these 1,000-gallon numbers. And the difference between those four numbers that month and from the month prior is what your bill's for, which is usually either 0 or 1,000 up to however many tens of thousands of gallons that somebody.
So after you hit 1,000, do you just bill for 2,000 because that's the way it works?
Nope.
No.
Once
Per
you
gallon,
can use
that's-
999 gallons of water in a month and still receive a bill for 0.
Flat rate.
Right. Until you use that gallon, your 1,000-gallon bill would show up on the next bill. So if you use 250 gallons of water a month, you'd have a bill for the flat rate for 4 months, 3 months until that 4th month hit, and then you get a bill for 1,000 gallons. So that's the way the billing works on the meter. That's how we find, we get those round numbers, because we only bill for 1,000 gallons.
A typical family use 300 or 400 gallons a day.
Yeah, I know. In the wintertime, I use maybe 500 gallons. When I'm watering the landscape in the summer, I use 4,000 gallons.
Right.
So my amount usage varies dramatically with the price of the change. I'm just curious as to why it's always in numbers.
We have to love it. I mean, if you look at it from like the office, some of the meters, we're still trying to find the remaining meters that have those funky weird numbers where it sends us that whole 8-digit number read. And we've been trying to, if they can't be reprogrammed, it's usually the SR, those old brass meters that are obsolete, that we're trying to work our way out
Brand new.
of having them. So yeah, so the most of those meters are the old SR2 meters that we're recycling and trying to put back into the meter replacement program. But those new meters, they are programmable to read just out those first 4 numbers, and that's the number that you see on the bill. You get the 1,000 or 300.
It's strange because you get ones for 500 gallons, 600 gallons. I get numbers under 1,000, even though it's at the flat rate.
I was gonna say, as long as you're receiving them at that flat rate, because I'd have to look into that.
Well, now I have to check that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, not as to God, you wondering.
The person who asked me, I'll tell them that come to the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain all that, what you just said 4 times?
One more time.
I'll bring a recorder and I'll just play back.
Some people don't, men don't listen, women don't hear.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I'll just have a screen, I'll have a printout.
Yeah. Say that 1,000-gallon thing again that you said like a million times.
All right, any other public comment? Any trustees reports?
And set a date for a special meeting.
I don't think we can do that during this meeting. However, you can contact Ashley and ask her to send out an email and we can get it set up. But because it wasn't on an agenda, I don't know if we can make that.
You gotta have it as an agenda item to have another meeting,
Yeah.
if the lawyer lets you.
Yeah, usually we can reach out to Mike and usually he'll approve a special meeting, as long as it's a public meeting, as long as we're following all the rules.
Kind of like that would be.
Budget, same with
Yeah.
budget. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we can get that one. Okay. Any other trustee reports, any comments? And
Yes.
oh,
Trevor filled in the ditch on Pine Nut. That was much better than it was. Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, I get the blade down that whole side.
Well, you guys should dump some rock and dry.
Yeah, I dumped up some rock up there by the culvert. too, where
Yes.
it's augured out, but
Yeah. That was good.
all right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. We're adjourning at 7:14 PM. Board members, you gotta sign your papers. Don't have them.
Yes.
You should have put it up on something here.
I went home for a couple hours. And closed up on the phone. They haven't been swelling down, but it still feels like there's a heartbeat in there.
another leak in the water line and get you up.
That's what yesterday.
Let me use, sign a contract that says you won't play football in your spare time.
Yeah, I know.
Pictures of him going
Right now, that way.
the other day.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it was-
With him the whole time, who's going?
no, he was up on the tractor.
I had to get in the hole yesterday. That was fun.
No, that boy.
Yeah, I know. I'm just learning all these things, but I'm
Cody
so
was down in the hole. That spray was about 25 feet in the air.
Find everything on the
Sometimes it's better to just do that.
George, let's hope this recorded better than last time.
Yes. He'll let you know if it is.